This is the video I wish someone had made before I moved to South Florida. 3 years ago, in Kansas City, I was sitting at my kitchen table with a map of Southeast Florida spread out in front of me, and honestly, I couldn't make sense of it. I understood cities like Chicago, Kansas City, Minneapolis. Those cities made sense to me. They had a downtown and they had suburbs. You could generally tell where the business district was, the entertainment was, and the residential areas. But then I started looking at the Southeast Florida map and I saw something entirely different. A long, continuous strip of development along the Atlantic Ocean with dozens of names that I had never heard before. Tequesta, Jupiter, Boynton Beach, Coral Springs. I was thinking, are these different cities? Are some of these suburbs? How does this whole place work together? And the most frustrating part was that these individual names of cities didn't tell me anything about the areas. When someone would tell me they're moving to Naperville, Illinois, Overland Park, Kansas, St. Charles, Missouri, those places made sense. I understood that they were suburbs. But when someone from the Midwest moves to South Florida and people say, hey, check out Boynton Beach or check out Coral Springs, those areas don't make sense, or at least they didn't to me at this time. And that is why I think most people from the Midwest struggle when they begin researching South Florida. They're approaching it with a Midwest city framework. And the South Florida Metro isn't built like most Midwestern cities. It's built different. But once you begin to understand the framework, the whole region will begin to make sense to you. Before we talk South Florida, let's talk about what you're used to. Most Midwest cities are set up like a wheel. In the middle is the downtown, and here's where you're going to have your tallest buildings, business districts, sports complexes, and around that you're going to have your suburbs. The further you drive from downtown, the further you're driving from the center of the city. And this is a pattern that we see over and over and over again in cities and towns across the Midwest. Places like Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Louis, different cities, but a very similar structure. So naturally, when people move to South Florida from the Midwest, they begin looking for that same structure. They're looking for that downtown hub, and the problem is there isn't one. And that is where the confusion begins, because Southeast Florida isn't built around one center. In fact, it's built completely different. The easiest way to think about South Florida is to not think about the wheel structure, but to think about a chain. South Florida isn't one downtown surrounded by suburbs. It's a long chain of connected communities stretching roughly 85 miles. Each link represents a different community. It begins up in Jupiter and it goes through West Palm, Delray, Boca, Pompano, and it lands down by Fort Lauderdale and Miami. Each of these cities has its own personality, history, downtown, and culture, but they're all connected. And what surprises people when they move here is often when you're driving, you won't even know you've crossed from one city line into another. The development is so continuous, it feels like one long coastal region instead of a collection of separate towns. In fact, it's completely normal for someone to live in one, work in another, have dinner that night in a third, and spend their weekends in an entirely different area. That's just normal life in South Florida. So the chain analogy is extremely helpful in understanding the way every city is connected north to south, but it leaves one question unanswered. Where are the downtowns and where are the suburbs? So this is where the second framework comes in. If the chain explains the city north to south, a timeline explains it east to west. And this was one of the biggest light bulb moments I had when I moved here and I began exploring this area. In many parts of South Florida today, as you drive from east to west, you're driving through the history of how this region was developed. The earliest communities developed along the coast, and the reason for this was partly practical. In a land of swamps, the highest and driest ground ran along the Atlantic Ridge, which sat along the coastline. That's where people built, that's where Henry Flagler built his railroad, and the downtown sprung up around it. Over time, as engineering improved and the wetlands are drained, development slowly pushed to the west. And that pattern is still visible today. In many parts of Palm Beach and Broward County, the older areas are along the east side, and the newer developments in the suburbs push to the west. So on the east side, you have your more historic areas, your old neighborhood grids, homes that were built decades ago. And as you head west, you begin seeing newer neighborhoods, master planned communities with luxury amenities, and homes that were built within the last 20 to 30 years. Then eventually you reached agricultural land, conservation areas, and the Everglades. So this isn't a perfect rule, and there are exceptions everywhere. You will find new buildings built along the coast and older communities further west. But as a general framework, it works surprisingly well. And once you understand it, the map begins to make more sense. Another thing that surprises people when they move to South Florida is that it feels smaller in person than it looks on a map. When you're first researching the distance between the cities, it can feel overwhelming. But because the whole region was developed as one connected corridor, getting around is often easier than people expect. For example, I live in Del Rey and my office is in Boca. That drive takes me about 20 minutes. Recently, I was showing properties down in Pompano Beach, and that trip took just under 30 minutes. 3 weeks ago, I was kayaking up in Jupiter, and I was there in just under an hour. Outside of rush hour, moving between these cities is surprisingly efficient. The biggest exception to this is further south by Fort Lauderdale and Miami, where traffic is a bigger, more ongoing factor. But for much of the region, people move between these cities without even thinking twice. That's one reason why understanding this area as a connected chain of cities is helpful, because people don't experience this area one city at a time, they experience it as one connected region. So if you remember anything from this video, remember this. Most people from the Midwest who move here experience confusion because they see this area as too many cities with too many downtowns. They're approaching it with the wrong metro framework in their minds. Don't approach South Florida looking for one main downtown area and suburbs around it. Think of it as a chain of connected communities, with the oldest areas and many of the downtowns being on the east side, getting progressively newer and more suburban as you head to the west. And once you understand those two concepts, the whole region becomes much more understandable. And you'll be much better prepared to know which of these communities deserves a closer look. In the next video, I'm going to talk about something that almost everyone thinks about when they move to South Florida: hurricanes. And more specifically, evacuation routes, hurricane preparation, and emergency management, and how the location you choose to move to will dramatically impact your experiences of hurricanes in South Florida. So if you're thinking about relocating to South Florida, be sure to subscribe to this channel so you're notified when that video comes out. And if you're thinking about making the move but you have questions about specific cities here, reach out to me. My contact information is on the screen here and in the description below.